Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the PT on Ice Daily Show. It is Friday, February 17th. If you're joining us live, I am Dr. Zach Long, currently faculty inside of the Fitness Athlete Division for the Institute of Clinical Excellence, working in our live course as well as our Advanced Concepts course that we offer online. Really excited to talk about today's topic, which is going to be don't be a hashtag glassback. So we're going to get into a couple of things that I believe that we as medical providers should be doing ourselves and doing in our treatment to reduce fear of the back, reduce our opinion that the back is fragile, and that opinion that our patients also have in terms of their back's resiliency. So prior to us jumping into that topic of not being glass backs ourselves and not creating glass backs in our patients, let's talk about upcoming courses that we have inside the Fitness Athlete Division. So our Advanced Concepts course is about to go live. It has already sold out though. So we only run that course twice a year. So if you've already taken Essential Foundations and you want to take Advanced Concepts and work towards getting your certification, then you need to go ahead and go online and sign up for our next cohort that's going to be later this year, because those sell out in advance and we only do it twice a year. The live course, we will be on the road several places over the next few months. In March, we're in Amarillo, Texas, Springfield, Missouri, and North Platte, Nebraska, Seattle, Washington in April, and then in May, Boston, Maryland, and Boston, Massachusetts, and Rockville, Maryland. So lots of options to catch us on the road in the next couple of months. Let's dive into today's topic of not becoming a hashtag glassback. So I love the hashtag glassback. A guy that I followed on Instagram for a little while, the Deadliest Lift is his Instagram username, just does a phenomenal job of showing a bunch of really insane lifts. He does a lot of strongman, old school variations of lifts, like crazy deficit trap bar deadlifts and Zercher carries and things like that. Just insane lifts. And he coined kind of the hashtag glassback. And I've kind of been using that a lot lately because I just continue to run into nonstop issues on social media where physical therapists and other medical providers are getting over the top worried when different videos are posted online, like showing somebody doing a light Jefferson curl or showing somebody doing myself doing back extensions off of a GHD, or I let my spine round and extend off of a glute hem developer machine. And it's just, to me, scary and bothersome that we still have so many medical providers that are that fearful of movement of the spine. And so I like using the hashtag glassback. And I want to dive into today 3 different things that I believe that we as medical professionals need to recognize in terms of the spine, and then 3 things that we can do ourselves to improve our own belief in the resiliency of our own spines, as well as transmit that to our patients. So let's start with the 3 things that we need to recognize. And I think point number 1, whether it's for the back or for any area in the body, your beliefs about your own body are going to influence that of our patients. So if you believe that your spine is weak and fragile, whether you realize it or not, you're going to convey that belief onto your patients themselves. If you believe that it is dangerous to do certain exercises at certain times, that is going to be transmitted to your patients. So it's really important that we have a very strong, encouraging belief about our own bodies. We need to believe that our back is strong and can handle moving loads. We need to believe that our back can move through full range of motion without being at risk of getting injured. Our beliefs dictate those beliefs that our patients will then have. Whether we say all the right words or not, that is going to be conveyed to our patients. So one great research study to check out, if you want to dive into that a little bit more, is titled Physiotherapists' Attitudes and Beliefs About Low Back Pain Influence Their Clinical Decisions and Advice. That is a really solid read if you want to dive into that specific topic a little bit more. The second thing that we have to realize is that there is a very big principle in rehab. I'm not talking specifically chronic pain here, but when somebody comes to you with an acute injury, a sports injury, an ortho injury that has not gotten to the point where they have maladaptive beliefs and behaviors from that, there is a principle of rehab that when an area is injured, we load that area. So when somebody comes in with shoulder pain, rotator cuff tendinopathy, shoulder instability, what do? We load up their rotator cuff and try to make those tissues more robust and resilient. When somebody comes in with Achilles tendinopathy, what do? We try to strengthen up the calf complex and the Achilles tendon. When somebody comes in with patellofemoral pain, what do? We load and strengthen the quads and the glutes. When an area is injured, we strengthen the tissues around that injured area. But for some reason, in low back pain, we're still stuck in the model of when somebody's back hurts, we load the core, we strengthen their abdominals. We get terrified of strengthening people's spines, of getting their back stronger, more robust, more resilient, which is the exact opposite of what we see everywhere else in the human body. And so I think we need to adapt that principle of rehab everywhere, including the back. And so one way to not be a glass back in our treatments is to load the spine and make stronger, more robust human beings in that area. The third thing we have to recognize is that the exercises that we choose for our patients are going to influence their beliefs about their own back. The exercise interventions that we choose. One of my favorite studies to illustrate this is Tagliafieri and colleagues. So they split individuals into two groups. One group did general strength and conditioning. So if you looked at their program, they're deadlifting, they're squatting, they're doing lunges. It looks a lot more like what a high school football team would be doing in the weight room than what we see in most physical therapy clinics. The other group did low load motor control exercises and manual therapy. And so that would be more of what we see in traditional physical therapy. They're getting spine mobilizations, they're doing their dead bugs, their clamshells, their bird dogs, those sorts of things. Heavy group, low load group, motor control, and manual therapy. They looked at these individuals over the course of 6 months. And what they found was that the general strength and conditioning group had larger improvements in muscle hypertrophy, muscle endurance, muscle strength, aerobic capacity, reduced levels of disability, and return to normal function. But what's even bigger than that is that the general strength and conditioning group had significantly reduced kinesiophobia and reduced disability compared to the motor control manual therapy group. People that lifted heavy weights when they had back pain became less scared of their back long-term, that's 6 months out, than people that only did motor control and manual therapy exercises. The exercises that you choose can dramatically change somebody's outlook on their back for the rest of their lives. That is really important for us to recognize. Because we all have patients that have tweaked their back once a year for the last few years, and they are now terrified of doing anything that involves loading their spine. They're scared to pick up a bag of dog food. They're scared to hinge over and lift. So they only go to the gym and only get on leg press. They only do cardio now because they're scared of lifting and tweaking their back again. We need to adopt the exercise interventions and treatment styles that are going to make people less scared of their back long term. And that happens when we lift heavy loads with individuals and we make them not be glass backs. Now, I think there are 3 things that we as physical therapists need to do ourselves. If we recognize that our beliefs about our back are going to impact our patients, if we believe that the exercises we choose are going to impact our patients, then there are 3 things that we have to do with individuals. We have to do ourselves, rather. Number 1, we as physical therapists and healthcare providers have to lift heavy. We need to have videos on our clinic's Instagram page, on our Facebook page, of our clinicians deadlifting, our clinicians doing swings, our clinicians doing heavy loaded carries, Romanian deadlifts, bent over rows, things like that. We need to do that both for ourselves so that we're feeling how our body responds to heavy loading, how awesome it is to move a heavy barbell. We need to also be putting that out there so that people are seeing that we walk the walk. We actually do the things that we talk about on a daily basis on our social media. One of my favorite examples of this, I taught a Fitness Athlete Live course a couple months back in Tennessee, and one of the participants was postpartum and had some postpartum issues and had not returned to heavy lifting. We got to the deadlift section, and man, this young clinician just absolutely lit up. She hadn't lifted heavy in a really long time. I believe she ended up hitting a 205-pound deadlift. And when you saw her lock that deadlift out, drop the weight, you could literally see like anxiety fall off of her body as that barbell went down to the ground. And she just lit up with a giant smile, huge amounts of pride in what her body could do when she wasn't that confident in it prior to that, even though she had the history of working out and CrossFitting in the past. Just getting back to that stuff made her more confident in her own body. We need to lift heavy and lead from the front there. The next thing we need to do is we as medical professionals need to be less and less scared of lightly loaded movements outside of neutral spine positioning. So we're starting to see the research trend this way just a little bit. So on social media a long time ago, this research article from Peter O'Sullivan and colleagues came out. It was titled "To Flex or Not Flex." And if you want to dive deep into that article, Alan did a fantastic podcast on this probably about a year ago. You can search on Google PT on Ice Daily Show "To Flex or Not Flex." He did a great review. I'm not going to go that in depth on it. But in this systematic review, they looked at does lifting with a flexed spine predispose individuals to low back pain? And what they found was that it did not. So lifting with a little bit of lumbar spine flexion did not predispose people to injury. Of course, the Twitter world went nuts and they said, see, it doesn't matter how you lift loads. You're not at increased risk injury if you lift with a flex spine, which is not necessarily true, because in that research study, we were talking about people that very infrequently lifted because they weren't doing this like nonstop. And also the weights that they lifted ranged from a pin up to the heaviest weight in any of those studies was 12 kilograms. So very lightly loaded spinal flexion, I don't think we should be scared of. In fact, there are a lot of people that have super, super stiff backs that respond incredibly well to things like Jefferson curls. Or there are people that do really well when you strengthen their spine, not just keeping it locked in neutral, but you do something like a glute ham developer back extension where they curl and extend that spine, that see great benefits from those types of movements. And we can't be scared of that. The research is not trending that direction. I still would argue that when we get to heavier loads, that we want to work on maintaining a more neutral spine, neutral zoned position back, not hitting in range under maximal loads. But we need to be less fearful of loaded movement outside of neutral and flexing the spine a little bit. Finally, we need to mobilize the spine in all directions. We need to get away from making people just stiffen and do core stability work, focus on hinging and not allowing their back to flex, not allowing their spine to rotate and side bend. We have a very unique anatomy in that our back is allowed to move so that we can get into different positions and perform different things. The human species body is not so fragile that bending over with a rounded spine and doing a Jefferson curl with 20 pounds, lifting a pin off the ground while not staying perfectly neutral, that is not dangerous. And we need to convey that belief onto our patients as well. So we need to lift heavy. We need to not be so fearful of our own backs so that we transmit that to our patients. So hope you enjoyed that episode. Glad to have so many people jumping onto the deadlift and loading train in terms of back pain and creating this culture of people that don't have, as Justin Dunaway says, flexophobia. And now we're going to use the second hashtag here, hashtag glassback. So hope you all have a fantastic weekend, and we will see you next time here on the podcast.